Whether you're brand new to video editing or you don't really love it, I think that video editing shouldn't be hard and I want to make it a little bit easier for you. So today I wanted to walk through how I edit my TikTok videos. I edit in Premiere Pro, but the tips I'm going to share today can be done in pretty much every program. So you don't necessarily need Premiere Pro. I actually suggest starting out with something like CapCut or iMovie. iMovie comes free on all Macs, so it's a really accessible and easy option to start learning. I personally prefer editing on my computer versus my phone. I absolutely hate editing on my phone actually. That's not for me. I know there are lots of people who edit straight in the TikTok app. I am not one of those people and I never will be. It really bothers me how difficult it is to like zoom in on the timeline and cut exactly where you want. Like it's just so much more complicated on a phone than a computer. So I definitely recommend editing on a computer over your phone. Not to mention every single distraction is on my phone. I don't need to be on my phone more than I already am. So before you can even start editing, you need to have all of your files on your computer. I used to do this by airdropping all of my files from my phone to my computer, but something in one of the last few updates changed where it no longer was working. I hadn't had problems with airdrop in years, and then all of a sudden I just could never get it to work, and I had to get videos off of here onto my computer and it just would not find it. So then I was getting frustrated. I posted about it on Instagram and Kendra told me about Katie Seckley's video where she uses image capture, and I'm like, what the heck is this? I've never heard of this. It's an app on your Mac. If you just go to Launchpad, type in image capture, it will come up, and I recommend pinning this to the bottom, like dashboard, whatever that dock thing is called at the bottom. And anytime you want to add something to your phone, you literally just connect it like this with a USB on the other end. So if you have extras laying around, you're going to want to just keep this on hand, plug it in, and then you use this app, and all of everything that's on here, every video, every photo that's on here will show up in the image capture, and you just drag the files over. It's so easy. And then you can immediately delete from the image capture off of your phone. So you don't have to go back in your phone and delete each one you just sent. You just delete it right from the computer. And then it also doesn't go in your recently deleted. It just deletes, and you don't have to remember to go back into your recently deleted. Can you tell I have a lot of space issues? Because that alone just saves me so much time, and AirDrop was already the quickest solution I had. This is even quicker. Even if AirDrop's working now in any of these new updates, I'm never gonna go back to AirDrop. I'm always gonna use this now. It's the most easy thing you could ever use. So hands down recommend if you have an iPhone and Mac. If you don't have a Mac, I'm sorry, I don't have any recommendations for how to easily get files over. I remember before I had a Mac, I would have to email everything. Well, actually before AirDrop was a thing, I would have to email everything, and that was a pain. So I'm sorry, but Apple to Apple is just like the most seamless transition. So definitely recommend that. So now we're gonna get into Premiere and start actually editing our files. If you have any questions at all about editing, let me know. And if you need a video editor, send me a message because I'd love to work with you. So while I'm in here, here is the image capture app. Let me just plug my phone in real quick, and you will see all of my pictures and videos just like immediately here, and you would be able to select all the ones you want and then drag them into the file. So that's how I do that. So I've got a new project started. So for Premiere, just open a new project, and this is what you're gonna see. I have a bunch of videos I can work on today. I'm just gonna drag everything right in here to the sequence. You can zoom in and out of the timeline by hitting the plus and minus buttons, and that's how you'll be able to like really get in there and cut out like the exact part that you want. Over here is where all of your files are. You can see them all right here. You can see this one is yellow and this is the sequence. So if you want to rename this right now, you could. So now you can see right here, it changed the name of the sequence. The first pass through is pretty much just getting rid of all of that dead space. So we're gonna have a lot of dead space where we're redoing the shots, or we pick up our pen and we're going to get a different one and we're off camera. That's what I call dead space. So the rough cut is pretty much just cutting things down to approximately what you want to keep in the video, and then we'll fine tune it later. With Premiere, you're gonna hit C on your keyboard to cut. You'll see this little, I don't know what to describe that as, but like a cut icon, and then you just pick your spot where you want to cut, and that is how you would be able to cut the pieces up. Command Z to undo. I changed something with my settings. So if you go to settings, keyboard shortcuts, if you search move playhead to cursor, I would just recommend turning this on if you're using Premiere, because then you can hit Z on your keyboard and move the playhead to where you want it to be. Otherwise, you have to drag this and get it right exactly where you want to cut, and I just find that to be super annoying. I'm also someone who came from using iMovie, where as soon as you cut it, the gap gets closed and you can use your mouse and it just moves to where you're clicking. Like, you don't have to do this extra step. So just pressing Z on my keyboard jumps to wherever my cursor is. The other thing to know is closing the gaps. I either added this as a shortcut or it is the shortcut, I can't remember, but you would do it in the same settings. I have Option G for my closing gaps because, like I mentioned before, those gaps just stay there, whereas with iMovie, they automatically close. So that was a big learning curve for me. Just gonna cut right here. Oh, one thing to know with Premiere specifically, if you wanna cut the beginning of a clip and completely delete it and move the clip, you can just hit Q on your keyboard. If you wanna delete the end of a clip, you can just hit W on your keyboard and it will delete everything. So I'm gonna hit W right here because I'm done with the rest of that. Whereas if I have C selected, I'd have to hit C, then B, then click, then delete, then delete. Like, it's just a lot more work. So if I just hit W, all of that goes away. This was me just testing, so I have to come back to this one because I'm not sure if I'll be able to use this or not, if any of those will line up with what I did at the end. So I'm just gonna keep that like that for now and we'll test it later. And then what I like to do with all of my coloring videos, but this can be said with talking videos as well, is I like to cut it exactly where the action starts. So whether I start talking or start coloring, I like to cut it right there. I'm gonna hit Q on my keyboard to delete the beginning of that. And then I'm just gonna drag and like kind of zoom through this, see where I'm done, hit W, move on to the next clip. I'm gonna hit Q to delete the beginning, zoom past this, see where I'm kind of done. I'm gonna repeat that process over and over until we are done. Now for this one, I kept going in the same clip, so I would hit C on my keyboard to cut that, and then Q when I start up on the next stroke. So basically right now, we are just cutting out literally all the fluff. We aren't worrying about speed. We're not worrying about anything like that. We are just getting rid of where nothing's happening. This one I wanted to do some sort of, okay, so I gotta look and see where right there looks like. So to do this, you cut it before anything happens, and then you cut it right where you touch it. And then this one, we have to find one where I touch it right there. I know it took me a few times, like that one was way off. That one looks pretty good. So we are gonna see what that looks like. That's not bad. We can try that one. Oh, that one looks actually closer. I'm just gonna drag that over and see. Is that one closer? Oh, that's like way better. Okay, we'll just keep that one. Cut that right there. I think I tried it a few more times, but I think that other one was perfect. So I don't need any of this. Yeah. Then we're just gonna zoom back in and look at this. And I cut it where I'm touching it, but you really don't need to be hanging there for that long. Like, actually that one wasn't too bad. I do need to cut the beginning though, to where right there is pretty good. But you can see how I stayed there for a little too long. So we need that to be right before I move. That looks like it should be good. Yeah. So I'm just gonna do this really quick and I'm gonna come back when the rough cut is completely done. Now we are back to the part where I am trying to do that transition. So what I'm gonna actually do is come to the very beginning and then I'm gonna drag this clip and I'm gonna see if any of them line up and see if I can get this to actually work. I'm not sure if it will. So I'm gonna look at these a few times. That one looks not bad. Kind of like that one. So let's see if any of them land like that or that. Nope. Nope. Kinda. So we can cut that one and save it maybe. See if we get a better one. Ooh, that one's not bad. Let's see. Okay, that one. Okay, my angles are so bad though. That one's not good. Okay, my only good option is that one, it looks like. Maybe I can zoom this in because that might not be terrible. Let's try and zoom this. So now I'm gonna show you how to zoom. You can do it a few ways. Over here in the effect controls, if you don't see that, hit window, effect controls actually. And then you'll see scale. But what I like to do is just double click on this and zoom like that so I can position it where I want it. We could do with a little bit of rotation. This is gonna be good enough. We don't wanna spend forever on this 1 second transition, and if it doesn't work then. And then for this, we need it to be right there. And then right before this falls. So I'm gonna hit Command A and just drag everything over a little bit. And then, so that gave me space at the very beginning to put this. And then I'm gonna hit Command A, Option G to close every single gap in the timeline. And now here we are. Now we've got the rough cut done. We are down from 14 minutes down to 9 minutes. So we've cut out a lot of fluff already. Now we're gonna go back through the entire thing and we are gonna change up the speed. We're gonna change up the zoom if needed, cut out even more space. I go through this like phase 2 multiple times. So we're gonna go through it once, go through it again till I've watched it 2 or 3 times and I'm like, yeah, this looks good. What ends up being like a 40-second video takes me a good amount of time to edit because I'm going through it so many times. I don't think you need to spend an hour on a 40-second video, but you should at least go through it a handful of times to make sure you have got this video down to be the best video it could be. Otherwise, what's the point of making it? Like if you're just going in with the intention of I need to post just to post, it's gonna feel like that actually. People will know that you don't really want to be doing this. I'm just gonna literally start right from the beginning, and anytime something bores me, anytime there's nothing on the screen, I'm gonna cut down. I like to have everything looking good first and then speed up and not rely on the time lapse as a crutch. This also helps the time lapse look better too because now there's not fluff in there. It's actually an engaging time lapse, so definitely helps you out in the long run. I'm gonna cut this right as the sound and the movement is happening and not any before that. And I kind of struggle with the flipping, so I'm just gonna cut right there because you don't really need to see the whole thing. You're gonna see what page I land on in a second. Now what you can do with your coloring videos or even vinyl videos is cut out anytime you pick up the pen or pick up your weeding tool or something like that, and cut out the half a second or sometimes 2 seconds where you're not doing anything. See, like right here. So I end that and I come back down. What I like to do is just end it right there and cut that, and then see how I went over that a couple times, and now we're gonna pick right back up right here where there's movement already happening, cut that out, and we just took out another 3 seconds. I think there are sometimes you will be able to see that, oh yeah, this person went back and filled in that tiny little gap, but overall it makes the video and time lapse so much more enjoyable to watch. Now, if you're doing a tutorial on here's how I color, keep all that stuff in because that's the stuff that people need to see. But I'm not doing a tutorial right now, so I don't need to keep that in. So I'm gonna go through this, and if there is anything that I want to show you, I will pop right back in. Okay, one thing I do want to show you before I get too far and forget, here's how you change up the speed in Premiere. In iMovie, it's right at the top. I think you go to like speed and you can change to a custom speed if you need to. But for Premiere, I just hit right click, speed duration. I like that it tells you how long the clip's gonna be because if I'm trying to get it to like 1 second, I know that I can do like 500. Oh, yeah, 500. But the most important thing is to hit maintain audio pitch. Makes it sound a lot better. And you'll see this bar is red now because it needs to render that audio. In iMovie, it's right at the top there too, and it's a button you click. But first you change the speed, and then after you change the speed, you can hit maintain audio pitch. I forget what it's called in iMovie, but there's a checkbox that comes up after you change the speed. Just take my word on this that when you speed it up, sometimes it gets like super high pitched and like annoying sounding. And if you want the scratchies or the ASMR sounds to sound good, but you need to speed it up, maintain the audio pitch, and that will help everything. Now this is something you can do in Premiere, but I don't believe you can do it in anything else. Well, unless you're using like Final Cut Pro. What is it called? Background? Shoot, what's it called? What is it called? Oh, denoise. Okay, just drag that over to here. See the difference? How it gets like less like muffled, like you can hear the pen noise a little bit better. You hear how some of that background noise got reduced? That is from denoise. So usually what I do is I will color one flower and then cut out all the rest of the clips of me doing that other flower. But with the crayons, I did 2 colors for each crayon. I don't know how to do it because it really doesn't need to be that long. It really doesn't need to be, I mean, without even being sped up, it's like from 1 minute to 3 minutes of just coloring crayons. So I think we gotta figure out how to cut this up so it's more interesting. One thought I have is usually what I do is I do the very top portion of the crayon and then I do the other color. So maybe I do just that cut where I'm doing the rest of that color. And then so like I would color in the top portion of the orange crayon, and then I would delete this one. I would delete this one, and I would delete this because it's coloring the same color. And that saves me a whole 20 seconds already. And then I would color in this and maybe just be done. Let's see. That could work. Obviously I need to speed these clips up, and I definitely need to adjust the audio because we had people mowing and all this stuff was happening. I'm gonna speed everything up to 150 and maintain the audio, and then hit Option G to close the gaps. I'm also gonna do that for these ones. I like doing 150 because it still looks real time. And when you're maintaining the audio, it sounds real time. I'm gonna let that render all those audios, and then I will go do the rest. I like doing that and then kind of speeding up from there. So then at least I have a baseline of normal. And I usually just look at the size of the clip. Like if I can see that, oh, this one's like way longer than the rest, then that one definitely needs to be looked at. Oh, another tip, you can mute certain audio tracks. So if you have music, a voiceover, and the original audio, you can mute or unmute a track. So that's definitely helpful to know.
This cannot be dying when I need this the most. This cannot be dying.
I'm gonna cut right to where I start talking.
This cannot.
And then I think I'm gonna speed this up even more because if we wanna maintain the audio pitch, we can't do 2000. So let's see what it sounds like. Is it worth it sounding bad?
This can.
See how that's like scratchy?
This cannot be dying when I need this the most.
Maybe we just start it right here.
This cannot be dying when I need this the most. You're just gonna have to bear with me. I know this is not the same color.
And I'm gonna cut in between the clips of me talking. And I'm gonna speed this clip up to 150. Maintain the audio pitch. It just is a little bit. And then I'm going to speed this clip up to 1000. It gets down to 4 seconds. I still don't know if I want it to be that long. 4 seconds is a long time to be on one clip. 2 seconds is kind of my guideline for being on one clip. Kind of gets boring after that. So we're probably gonna cut this down right there. I heard something and I didn't like the sound of it. And then sometimes it's nice to go from really fast to real time, but then you gotta make sure the real time is like worth it. So maybe I will right there, might be a good spot to. See this whole chunk right here that nothing is happening? Cut it out. And this was a time lapse I had done on my phone, and it doesn't have audio. So usually with time lapses I do on my phone, I speed up to 200, 300. The only downside is it doesn't have any audio. So if you're listening to this on TikTok, it's gonna go from having audio to all of a sudden not. If I'm gonna do that, it should be really, really quick. I'm just actually gonna get rid of all of me coloring the word then, because this whole thing, granted I am doing different letters and different words, but this whole thing kind of is the same thing. If you look at it like that, where all the crayons were one thing and now all the words are one thing, you can kind of be like, this isn't that interesting to watch for 20 seconds. So we need to figure out how to cut this and make it more interesting. So I've got the video down to 2.5 minutes. Technically I could post this on TikTok. I could also post it on Instagram, but I couldn't post it on YouTube. I also like my videos to be under a minute if possible. I don't know, you can sometimes just tell when a video doesn't need to be more than a minute. And that's the case for this one. It's not super complex, so there's not a lot to really like look at. And that's not like a fault to this coloring book at all. That is definitely a pro for me. I'm just picturing some of those like super complex coloring books, and those ones usually are longer than a minute because there's so many little details to do. But for this one, there wasn't as much, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on things. So now that it's down to 2.5 minutes, I'm gonna go through everything again, and then I'm gonna see what is feeling repetitive. Where can I cut? Especially with some of these clips that are like 5 seconds long, I'm gonna see, can I cut them in the middle and will they still look okay? Or does this need to be the whole 5 seconds and I can cut somewhere else? So basically what I think you'll find with the way I edit is I kind of just go through things over and over again until it's the way I want it. Once it's the way I want it, then we will move on to like adding details to it. And I don't really add details to TikTok videos like text or sound effects or zoom or anything like that, but you'll notice with my long form YouTube videos I do that. So I will show you how I do that, but I don't necessarily do that for TikToks. Okay, one thing I wanted to show you is if you are doing something where, let's say you're zooming or you're doing the background remover, the denoise or something like that, where you've made a change to a clip, you can hit Command C or right click and hit copy. And then on the clips that you want to paste it to, you can just drag and hit paste attributes and it will add those to it. Okay, so now that I've got it down to 46 seconds, I want to talk about all the things that I cut out of this so that you can kind of think about these things when you're editing your video. I have the transition, and then I cut out where I'm bringing the coloring book in and flipping through that because one, it took up like a second, and two, I figured, well, you already know what page I'm gonna do, so you don't actually need to see me doing that. I do that in a lot of my videos at the very beginning because the sound is very loud and I keep thinking I hear someone. So we don't need that in this one. I cut right to me coloring, but instead of showing you this whole thing, I just show you the part where I'm coming down because that sounds really good. And then I skip where I'm doing this part because that didn't sound as good. So I just cut it out back to where I'm coloring and it's the loud noise and you can hear that really nicely. And then I cut out the next 2 clips because that was where the lawnmower was the loudest. I count this little section as one piece and you don't need to see me do the whole thing to know what I did. And then I cut to the very end of this one because you didn't need to see me do the whole thing because that would have been 10 seconds, even sped up. We could keep it sounding good and I didn't have to mute anything, so you know, everything's good there. And then I already had planned for that to be a transition where I tapped it, so we already saw that. But for the crayons, I wanted to show you this. I sped these up to 500% and then I cut everything out. I only did the top part and then skipped everything else so that this wouldn't be super long on just the one section. Coloring this background obviously was a lot. So I cut out, you know how before you had it go fast, slow, fast? Well, I cut out that part before. You didn't really need to see that. So I just had the one clip be slow and then I had to go back to being fast again. I actually had the clip in where I was coloring this whole section right here. Cut that out because when I pick right back up and talk, it cuts to being colored. So we already see that happen. We don't need to see it again, essentially. And then I talk about how I'm coloring over the lines, and then it cut to me coloring some more. And then I say something like, it looks like I can't even color, and I go into a long spiel again about how it doesn't matter because I'm going to color this in. Well, I already kind of said all of that, so I don't need that second part in. So I cut that all out and cut to just the part where I'm coloring it in with a darker color. So what I had said was, I'm going to be coloring this in with a darker color, then I colored, then I kind of reiterated that, and then I colored with a darker color. So instead, I just cut that piece out. I said, doesn't matter, I'm gonna color with a darker color. And then I immediately did that. Earlier, I was telling you how the words cheaper than therapy all kind of were one section. Well, I didn't really know how to split this up where it made sense because it kind of felt weird to do like CEA, CHE, and then cut out the rest. Like it just kind of felt weird to do just a few letters and then skip to the next word. So instead, I just skipped the first two words and we just did the last word. So I didn't have to make any decisions on, okay, where does it make sense to cut the letters out? And we just did one whole word. So we got this 14.5-minute video down to 46 seconds. That is pretty much the basics of how I edit videos. So I want to show you some more Premiere quick tips, but it's for a long form video. So just if you need to take these for your TikTok videos, you can take these tips as well. Layering videos is actually pretty easy. Let me just show you something. So if you are on a clip and you right click and you hit unlink, you can easily delete that audio. So sometimes that is necessary. So for example, I have this clip right here that I just put on top of it, but what I did first was I unlinked it, deleted the audio, and then put it on top of this clip. And technically I could have just put it right here and removed it, but I always like to put it on top just in case I want to come back later on and have my face showing. So that's how I do that. You have all these tracks right here that you can just drag clips on and up, and then it creates more. And that's how you do that. If it's selecting something that you don't want it to do, you can always come over here and lock it. So then when you double click it, it's selecting what you want. And then you can just go like this or whatever. As you can see over here, I have 4 different things. And the way you do it is you just drag your images in, and then you can right click. Well, let me ungroup these. You can right click and go to speed and duration. And then you can set this to be however long you want it to be. And then I just drag each one of these on top and kind of split them up. So each time a new image comes, I have a popping noise. I also have a clicking mouse sound that I literally just put my phone up to my mouse and clicked. And then that's how I got that audio. But adding a little sound effect right there is super helpful, and I just drag that under my audio from like the video. If you're seeing anything here that I'm not telling you about, let me know, and I can always make like a video on how I edit my vlogs, but I'm trying to find, I don't think there's anything here that would do it, but let me take this clip. So if you want a book or whatever it is, a graphic to come down from the top, bottom, left, right, wherever, it's all gonna be the same thing. What I find to be easiest is to have the book where I want it to end. And then you're gonna come over here to the effect controls, hit position and scale, hit that little stopwatch, and that'll create a stopping point right there. Now, if you go to the very beginning and you click that and drag it up, you'll see that it's gonna be coming down. So now if we hit play, okay, that's going real slow. So I'm just gonna literally, actually I didn't even need that one. So I'm gonna just slide this in, start it over, hit play, see if that's a little bit faster. That's still a little bit too slow, so I'm gonna hit this down here and scroll in so I can see it a little bit closer. There, let's see what that looks like. That's pretty fast. You would do the same thing if you wanted to zoom in and out pretty slowly or quickly, whatever. You could just go like this, hit it a few times, and then maybe you move it over here and see both the scale and position have moved. So if you start at the beginning, see how it moved over pretty quickly, you could change the timing of that by moving those little playhead things up here in the effect controls. For TikTok videos, I don't typically put in my captions or anything like that. Sometimes I will, but for the most part, I try not to because TikTok can't really read the words that you're typing in an external source, but they can read their captions, and your videos will do better if it can read your captions and know what you're talking about, because then it would know what the video is about. However, it can save you time to not do that. So it just depends on how important it is for you to have those captions pre-made or not, or do it through TikTok. I find that for the most part, TikTok has gotten really good at the captions, so it's a lot better than it used to be. I don't have to fix as many things. I think for the most part, that's everything. I'm drawing a blank of what other things I know that would be helpful to share. So if there's anything else you have questions on and you want to know how to do it, just leave them in the comments. I'm happy to answer those questions or make another video. I hope this video was helpful despite what editing program you use. For the most part, all of this stuff will be doable in most programs, but the buttons and everything will obviously be different. Yeah, for the most part, this is how I would be editing if I were doing it in iMovie as well. Sometimes when I am on my laptop, I will just use iMovie because it's a lot simpler of an interface. My laptop doesn't have as much room for all these different tabs and stuff, so I prefer using iMovie on my laptop if I'm gonna edit something quick. I will only do that if I know it's like an easy video though. Sometimes it still just like bothers me because I can't get as zoomed in as I can with Premiere. But if you have any questions, let me know. I am happy to help. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I will see you next time. Bye.